What's up, everyone? Happy Monday. Welcome back to the channel. Today I'll be talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. This is definitely one of my anticipated movies of the year. I've seen it twice in the movie theater, if that's going to tell you anything going into this. So let's dive right in. So directed by Jeff Rowe and Kyler Spears, we follow the Turtles basically through their origin story in New York City, but this time it's a little bit more focused on wanting the approval of humans. And that's kind of the gist and the core message around this movie, but there's a lot more to unpack. So this is written by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, and Jeff Rowe. So many people starring in this. A lot of people I'm not very familiar with. When it comes to the Turtles, the only one actor I was very familiar with was Brady Noon, primarily from the Mighty Ducks series. And then the lady that voices April O'Neil is also an actress on The Bear, streaming on FX and Hulu. I mean, and you've got like a lot of the other mutants as well I'm very familiar with, but in terms of like the core cast, you get a lot of new voices, new actors that I'm not very familiar with, and some of them are very brand new. But let's just get into, what I liked, what I didn't like, and my overall thoughts on the Turtles. So in regards to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, this is something I grew up with. I am a child of the 80s, especially the late 80s, so I grew up with watching the 87 animated cartoon. I grew up collecting the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle action figures. I had probably all of them, including like their van and a couple of other like maybe vehicle accessories, but variations of the Turtles, Shredder, April, Foot Soldiers. I mean, I had so many. If I had a photo on hand, I'm sure I've got a photo somewhere that has me with all these toys. I'd share it, but unfortunately got rid of all of them through the classic garage sales growing up, which is a bummer. But that being said, I love the Turtles going into the 90s, watching the 90s trilogy, really enjoying the first one and the second one. Now the third one, it's been a minute since I've seen. I remember not liking it as much as the other two, but I do need to go back and revisit it because, like I said, it's just been so long since I've seen that one. And even getting into some of the reboots or the retelling of the Turtles. We had the TMNT animated, and I remember seeing that in theaters and actually enjoying it for what it was. And that's one I've not seen, but just the one time. But I do remember enjoying it in the theater. And then we also had this other reboot that brought in Megan Fox as April O'Neil with the Turtles. And I mean, those, they probably weren't my favorites, but I did find things in each of them that I enjoyed. And now we have this new animated version of the Turtles. And let's go into the positives right away. I really like the animation, and a lot of this is probably stemming from the success of Into the Spider-Verse. That animation I really loved, especially across the Spider-Verse. So we know that we're seeing a lot of animated movies trying to compete with that or stay at the par. I believe the team behind this one did Mitchell's versus the Machines, if I'm correct, and that's a movie I really enjoyed as well on Netflix, which has a very unique animation to it. But I probably wouldn't say I enjoyed the animation as much as like Into the Spider-Verse or Across the Spider-Verse, but still, it's an enjoyable watch. It's really cool. I think, especially watching this 2 times in the theaters, I'm looking for a lot of the little details that I may have missed from my first watch. So the animation is really great. The soundtrack, the music throughout this film is really, really fun. Loved a lot of the song choices they picked in this. The voice acting is really great as well. Everyone's keeping me entertained. And going into the voice acting, especially with the Turtles, I think this is probably one of the better iterations we've seen from the Turtles in the teenage realm. I think with the 90s movies, I don't know, they always seemed much older than teenagers, and some of the way that they talked at the time just didn't have that teenage vibe to it, even though their actions and kind of like their one-offs, their one-word, phrases, or kind of lean more into that. And I think it leans a lot more into just the classic Turtles. So this, we get a little bit more of a Gen Z approach. They're using words like sus and just shortened phrases on things, which is, it's fun. I think it could go over some people's head if you're not familiar with these terminologies. I will say, the second time I watched this movie, there was a lot of adults and they were cracking up through the whole movie, so that was a fun experience. But I think the writing around this is very clever, because it just, it kind of flows into more modern worlds, and we're putting the Turtles as they're kind of navigating through the streets of New York City, and they're monitoring other people. They're going to like outdoor movies and watching other teenagers and how they're behaving, and they know about school and all these other life kind of events that they should be going through, but they're not. And it's kind of, we get this moment near the beginning that kind of brings it down a level, because they're essentially very sad. They want to be a part of everything and enjoy these experiences, but they just feel like they won't be accepted. And we get moments that kind of go into why, and that becomes the core message around this. And overall, I really like the message. If I had to nitpick anything, it gets more into Splinter, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I think the story itself is pretty straightforward. We have this encounter with April, and they start engaging with her and building that relationship, and she's very honest with them about things. But through that, they come up with a plan of how they hope they can, basically save New York City from a supervillain known as Superfly, and we'll get into the villains in a second. And hopefully in doing so, we'll basically open up the New York City to accepting the Turtles and allowing them to kind of roam the streets with the humans. Now we get into the mutants, and they were a lot of fun voice acting. Now some of the mutants didn't get as many lines as the others, which it would have been cool to see a lot more engagement, because some of them just basically did one thing on repeat, and it's fine. But just getting all of these great actors and actresses and having their personalities shine through all these different mutants would have been great. For one, getting to see Bebop and Rocksteady was a highlight for me, because growing up with the 80s cartoon, these were characters I've always loved. We don't really get them in the 90s movies, unfortunately, but we kind of get like their kind of unique original spin-offs, since I guess they weren't given the rights to do those. But getting to see these characters finally was so much fun, because they're some of my favorites. Many of the mutants, I think the only other one I was really familiar with was Superfly. But just getting to see them on screen and how the Turtles engage with them, and just how this plays off in terms of this story was pretty fun. Going into that, so let's talk about, I guess, the villains. Superfly is kind of the main villain that we have here, kind of leading the mutants with his mission. Again, it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing necessarily new. We've kind of seen versions of this in other superhero films, but we do get someone that's basically leading the TCRI, which, let me find the name of this one's. Apologies, I can edit around this, but we can keep it raw as well. Which I think this is just basically a spin-off of other characters in the TMNT world. So we have the TCRI, which is the Techno-Cosmic Research Institute. In this one, it's kind of ran by a woman, which her last name was Utram, which kind of leads into some other characters in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle world, primarily when we deal with Krang, and there's like some AI as well, some robots. So I would expect we're going to get a lot more from that part of the story later on, which is interesting. And I think it's a fun version that we get to kick off what could be maybe a trilogy. I don't know. But, we're so used to seeing Shredder as the primary villain in the films, and this time we get someone new, which was great. So I think it's really cool to see all this. Going into the negatives, I think part of the story felt very repetitive. It just felt like we were hearing the same thing over and over again. And they did change up Splinter's story to kind of follow through with this new message that they're trying to push through the film. And it's okay at moments, but I just wasn't for it completely. I do it, and I really like Splinter's original story from the comics, and I get they don't want to do the same thing over and over and over again. They want to try to mix it up. But this version of Splinter, while it, he's typically a goofy-esque character, it was a little bit above, and I don't know, it was kind of like one of the lower parts of the film for me, but everything else I really enjoyed. So for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, I'm gonna give it an 8 out of 10. Really fun watch, easy watch. The violence is a little bit heavy, so I think depending on your kid's age, you may want to consider that. A few bad words in it, but other than that, it'll keep you entertained, keep you laughing, rooting for the turtles. It's a really fun watch, and it's one I'll definitely revisit multiple times. So thank you so much for checking out my review on Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. If you saw this one, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Also, with all of the various turtle movies or even series, what's been your favorite? Would love to know in the comments below. Thank you so much for stopping by. Be sure to click like and subscribe. That'll help my channel grow, and it really means the world to me for your support. And I'll be back again with more reviews very soon.